What's going on, guys? I'm Tyler, and I'm here to let you know that Sound of Metal is no perfect movie. And Sound of Metal is about a heavy metal drummer named Ruben, played by Riz Ahmed, who all of a sudden starts to progressively lose his hearing. And because of his past actions as a drug addict, his sponsor sends him to a deaf community where he's faced with the ultimate choice. He can live in denial over the fact that the hearing that he's lost is never going to come back, or he can accept it and start to become accustomed to his new way of life. And one of the reasons I was initially skeptical about this movie was I've never really found Riz Ahmed all that great as an actor, not because of him alone, but more because of the choices in movies and characters that he portrays. Like, I'm one of the few people that really like the last Jason Bourne movie, but I felt like his character and story were very generic compared to the other movies. Same thing with Rogue One. For all the complaints people had about the main characters in that film being just ripoffs of the original characters, Bodhi Rook was kind of a ripoff of the sequel trilogy in that he's an Empire member defecting to the Rebel Alliance. He's basically just ripping off Finn. And again, I didn't think his acting was enough to really get past that. And I don't really think I need to explain what was so bad about him in Venom, but nevertheless, I still wanted to check out this movie because sign language, deaf culture, they've always really fascinated me. I always love the opportunity to see a movie told from a deaf perspective because it's visual storytelling, but it's also very unique, informative, and comes off as being very artistic while still being very respectful and realistic at the same time. And I'm happy to say Sound of Metal was probably one of the best examples of seeing a story like this that I've seen in a long time for one specific reason. It takes a look at every single possible experience of what life without hearing might be like while still serving the story and the character development through the amount of dialogue, the cinematography choices, the subdued performances, and most importantly, the sound design or lack thereof in some scenes. Because the sound design, in my opinion, is absolutely Oscar worthy. I know that there are a lot of limited choices in regards to what you can nominate for sound mixing, but I'm hoping that at least gives it the possibility to at least be nominated, let alone win, because it really does do a very effective job at putting you in this one guy's shoes as he's experiencing what it's like to be deaf for the first time. For the first 20 minutes or so, when a shot is told from the perspective of a hearing character, the sound design is like any other movie. But when it switches to a perspective of Ruben trying to understand his brand new situation, the sound immediately really goes down. It's muffled, distorted, and altogether just so inaudible. And it does such a great job of making you feel the pain and frustration that he's going through. But once he goes to this deaf community and he tries to get more adjusted and try to learn new things, the sound design switches, but in a very natural way. And for the majority of the scenes in the deaf community, you hear lots of sound, but very little talking just because you're observing deaf people living average lives, doing basically the same things that we do, even listening to music through vibrations, particularly in this one great scene where Ruben is watching one of the kids that he's learning alongside, and he's on a slide just banging We Will Rock You as the kid is leaning over, just trying to feel the vibrations as best as he can. And it was just such a great, heartwarming moment, and there are plenty others like that in the movie. The director, whose name I believe is Darius Marder, I have no idea if I said that right, I apologize. He clearly has such a high level of respect for the audience to the point where the entire movie is open caption. The movie is, the trailer is, because I looked at my buddy Josh and I'm like, wow, it's great that you guys put captions on the trailer. And he's like, oh, no, that's the entire movie. That's how the director wanted it. And I'm just like, good for him. I like that. Whether you see it in a theater, if you can see it in a theater, or at home on Prime Video, captions are not optional, they're mandatory, and rightfully so that every audience member can enjoy the film. And the thing that I really appreciated about this choice was that they don't caption every single basic sound or sign language conversation that happens within this movie unless, again, it serves the story and the character development. With the sound design, they only caption the sound if it's coming from a character or the character immediately notices, so that deaf audiences can get a clear understanding of what it's like to watch and listen to a movie all at once. And with the sign language conversations, because at the very beginning, Ruben obviously doesn't know how to sign, the conversations are not captioned, and it leaves you just as in the wind as he is until he starts to learn basic words, the alphabet, basic conversations, and then once you see him sign out a conversation, it feels very rewarding. And it definitely helps that, in my opinion, Riz Ahmed has never been better than he is in this movie. Not just because he has to portray a lot of different emotions without much dialogue, without a very high key line delivery like he usually does. He's a very subdued actor in this movie. He has to portray a lot through body language, facial expressions, sign language, of course, and this little word that I learned called vocalics, which is basically just like grunts, moans, and the occasional scream, because once in a while he can be a hot-headed character. But what was also very interesting was that he seemed like a person that I can know in real life, because I'm actually friends with a couple of heavy metal musicians, and if they do see this movie, I hope they don't get completely freaked out over this situation. But not only does it capture what a real life heavy metal musician is in real life, because people still have this perception that heavy metal musicians are so rebellious and hot-headed, but Ruben, from beginning to end, is a very, in general, polite and low-key person in regards to his line delivery and the way he speaks, and his interests in music are actually very versatile. He doesn't just listen to heavy metal music, he listens to orchestral, he listens to jazz, especially towards the beginning, and I just sat there, I'm like, you clearly understand what a musician in any field feels like, and that part felt very rewarding. But the biggest surprise about his character development is that they do kind of treat his deafness almost like an addiction, because his character was a recovering addict, and as I said before in the synopsis, the overall arc that he's trying to accomplish is whether or not he can learn from his mistakes and become a better person in the process, or continue to live in denial, because there are so many different deaf perspectives on what life is like. We even get some scenes where we hear what it's like to wear a cochlear implant device, which I found very surprising, because people are very split on that, and media portrays that as cochlear implants either being a plot device like In a Quiet Place, or as being a complete sellout for anyone who wears them. Switched at Birth did that in a couple episodes. And even though this movie does kind of take that, oh, if you wear a cochlear implant, you're kind of selling out stance, it does make it clear that there are some positive elements as there are negative elements to wearing such a device. Now, as for the majority of the side cast, there are a lot of deaf, hard of hearing actors, or a couple CODA actors, and CODA stands for Child of Deaf Adults, and the majority of them are either extras or minor characters at best, and that part is very disappointing, especially from Lauren Ridloff, who was nominated for a Tony for Children of a Lesser God, and she's going to be in Marvel's Eternals eventually. I was looking forward to seeing her on screen, but she didn't really have that much of a characterization. But I am happy to say that their performances nonetheless still add to the story and the character development, because you can tell that they're accustomed to their way of life, but Ruben isn't, so it creates this tense but still warm and welcoming atmosphere nonetheless. And out of all the actors in this movie, side character-wise, that really make a difference, I'm going to try my best and say this guy's name because he's not that big of an actor. A real-life child of a deaf adult named Paul Raci. Again, sorry if I got this wrong. He plays this sponsor-like figure to Ruben, and what definitely made the biggest impact on him character-wise was the way that he was able to be this tough love mentor figure while also never coming across as judgmental. He always chooses his words very carefully. He always delivers his lines in such a low-key delivery, but you can also tell through his facial expressions that he doesn't really want to choose his words carefully, because he does have an emotional stance over Ruben whenever he refuses to take anything seriously. But he knows that if he lashes out and acts like a complete dick to Ruben, he's not going to teach him anything, and more importantly, Ruben's not going to be able to learn how to adapt. And seeing him on screen every single time was very rewarding. And even though Olivia Cooke's name is on the poster and is featured in the trailer a lot, she's not really in it that much, but at the same time, I think her lack of screen time actually makes her a much more important character because she's the only person in Ruben's life before he went deaf that he had to support. But when he has to go to this community, as per usual AA rules, he has to completely cut off the ones that he loves so that he doesn't hurt, so that he can focus on his work. And that actually made some of the arguments between them so intense and heartbreaking that I actually teared up during one of them. I have no problem admitting that. Now, as per main flaws, the pacing during the first 20 minutes feels a little too slow because they're trying to show what he was like as a hearing person, but once he does lose his hearing, the pacing starts to pick back up a little bit. And the other main problem I had was that the last 20 minutes reminded me a lot of Nomadland in terms of story beats and what the character is going through. And I feel weird saying that because Nomadland was a better movie, but Sound of Metal was made before Nomadland. It was shown at TIFF in 2019 as opposed to 2020. So I don't really know how to make of it. Nomadland did it better, but Sound of Metal did it first. I don't know how to respond to that, but regardless, Sound of Metal is easily one of the best movies I've seen all year. I think it's one of the best examples of portraying deaf and hard of hearing characters on screen through the acting, the cinematography, the direction, the writing, the sound design, and most importantly, the open captions. We really, really need to put captions in theaters, not just so everyone can watch and enjoy the movie, not because the closed captioning shit is really awful and doesn't actually do much, but it just helps everybody. There's a reason Netflix and Amazon put on captions for hearing people so that they don't have to adjust their volume all the damn time. And same thing with watching a movie in a theater. If a person can't hear the sound when the sound design, the sound mixing, and the music sound a hell of a lot more loud than the dialogue, Nolan, put captions on there so people don't have to keep complaining about it. Seriously, it's not that hard of an accomplishment. I have nothing else to say other than the amount of passion I have towards this movie is the reason I'm struggling to come up with that many sentences throughout this entire video. So, long story short, definitely check out Sound of Metal if you can whatsoever, and I'm going to give it a 4.5 out of 5. Guys, thanks as always for watching. If you have seen Sound of Metal, let me know in the comments below what you thought of it. Be sure to stay tuned for more reviews, and be sure to like and subscribe. Take care.